tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
What's up, everybody? Hold on, let's just let the song marinate a little bit. Hey. What? What? I don't know that was part of the song, but that's a good ad-lib. What's up, everybody? I am your host, Lem Gonsalves. You are watching The Affair After Show. As always, this is such a great programming, but I feel like I'm the luckiest man in the world because not only do I have one beautiful co-host, I have two here today,
Lem,
and I'm so excited. First, I have my girl, April Whisenhant. What's up to him?
Hey guys, what's up? Happy to be back.
And we have a special guest host with us, Miss Kellie Knezovich.
Hey guys, I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, right? So I'm just, first of all, I really love how this show is going. I feel like every time I watch this show, I feel more and more invested into these characters and what's going on with the story. And I mean, the director is doing an amazing job. I think the writing is good with the show. It just has all the formula for a great, great TV. What do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just like we see at the end in the preview how Rolling Stone called it best new drama and everything.
Right.
Like if you're not watching the show, you have to watch it.
Right.
Stop what you're doing and watch.
That's perfect.
It's amazing. I feel like whenever we were watching it today, and just every week we sit there just like not breathing, waiting to see what's going to happen. So,
exactly.
Oh, I love it.
I especially like this episode because it was very, very stripped down.
Yeah.
You really get into the nitty gritty of the affair, the title of the show. They've been kind of dancing around it with, of course, and we know that those of you that are watching the show, it's always broken into two parts.
Right.
It's always part one, which is Noah, and then part two, Allison. And so with this particular one, they did some interesting things with that dynamic. First of all, it was basically the whole entire show was just them two, with the exception of one, mini character that had a little bit of relevance, but not too much. It was mainly them. And also with this particular episode, they had a continuum.
Right.
Normally we've seen kind of both their versions, which is still their versions, but in this particular time, you saw Noah's version, and then you saw Allison's version, which was a continuation of what Noah said.
Right.
So why do you think they did that this particular episode?
I kind of feel like it's just to show more detail, like to actually really get us into the affair. Because just like they said, it hasn't been like a full-on affair, although, maybe I'm wrong in this, but I had been thinking that they had definitely already had sex. And we learned tonight.
We said that.
I thought too.
We said that, yeah.
I definitely thought they had, but I guess we learned tonight that they haven't. But I feel like they did it so that we could learn more about the characters and actually start to really feel something for the affair, whether we feel like they're justified in it or it's totally wrong or whatever.
Side.
Yeah, just to give us a little more details on specifically them, I feel like.
And I think their conversations too. I think the conversations that they had between when they were walking down to, is it Mohegan Bluffs, when he was telling the story about his mother, or she was talking about her grandfather. I think those conversations were super real.
Right.
Well, I think too what it shows is these are two people who, in both their versions, you see that there is some apprehension with doing this. In Noah's version, you see his apprehension, and Allison, you see hers. So their version of kind of getting into this, because it's almost like there's no turning back now.
Right.
We've gone on this particular island. We're here. What's going to happen now? Like, there's really nowhere else to go but to actually consummate the affair.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which we see lots of tonight.
Yeah. And it's also kind of their first time alone together where they don't have to worry about who's watching or who's going to catch them.
Right.
And it's the first time that we see them together being able to really be themselves. And
Right.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
It is. So it starts off in Noah's version, of course, as we mentioned before, and he's talking to a son. And of course, those of you that are watching also, all of this is playback to a detective that is investigating a murder.
Right.
And so all of these versions are basically what they're saying to him. And it starts off with Noah on the phone talking to a son, and he's talking to the detective. And he makes a point which actually comes up different. The detective in Noah's version says that he's divorced.
Right.
When in Allison's version, he says that he's married. So I thought that was interesting. I want to point out another thing. We found out in April, since you've been on the show with me, we always discover a commonality in between their versions. And I noticed, and I don't know, maybe because it was the way it was broken up, but normally there's like something that both of them say.
Right.
Either something that happens or something that's verbally said. And I think it didn't happen in this particular episode. So I wonder if that has anything to do with, like I said, the way they broke it up, with it being a continuum, or these versions just polar opposite than what's happening because there isn't any I mean, what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, that stuck out to me as well because there's always that one tying thing. And so it's like, I kind of feel like maybe they did it that way because his version is what happened. I mean, I'm sure like a few details are off and then it just goes into hers. But then we also noticed a few conversations that were a little different. I'm not really sure why, but I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it made them seem more truthful to me, but I also saw both of their kind of like sneaky sides this time, where in his versions, I always think of him as like, I'm like, oh, I feel for him kind of, and because he actually seems like remorseful and not like he's just actually, oh, just woo, I'm having an affair. But tonight we kind of see like he wants this to happen in his version, and then same in her version. You know, she's obviously torn up and whatever, but I mean they're going full force with it. So I don't really know why they did that, but
It is interesting. I think that it has to do with the actual consummation of the affair, because that's where both sides end and begin. So if you look at it, in Noah's version, his version ended at them having sex.
Right.
And Allison started off with them having sex.
Right.
So, or continuing to have sex. So, which it happened, a couple of times. But I think that that's where the tying element, in my opinion, was. And I think that's why they maybe put it in that context, meaning like, okay, these are the two versions. The whole point of an affair, the culmination is that act.
Right.
Because up until that point, you're kind of flirting with the idea, okay, we kissed, which is still wrong if you're married, obviously. But, a lot of people say that, oh, it's not an affair until you actually do the deed.
And I think he kind of has that mindset too, because he doesn't really think that he's cheated on his wife so much. And she's like, you've kissed me, and what were you doing with your hands down my underwear and all that stuff. So I think that they have a very different mindset of what having an affair means, and they full on went for it this time.
Well, they both are in agreement this time.
Yeah.
That
They
are
see
definitely
eye to
having They are definitely, he made her see eye to eye.
Yeah.
You notice that, like, you gotta look at me, girl.
Yeah.
Right. Look at me right now. So it starts off with Noah, and we see him getting some coffee, and he spills it on himself because he seems like he doesn't seem like he's very coordinated. I feel like there's a lot of times in the episode that he's kind of done things, whether it's like stammering speech, flippant speech, he said something kind of weird, or he's done something like he's bumped with his daughter in the first, episode. But anyway, he spills coffee on himself, and then he comes out, and then we see that Allison is there. So on this ferry, we don't know exactly where they're going, but he's kind of halted because there's a lady that recognizes her, and then she starts talking with her and having conversation, and it sounds like somebody she's known for a while. And so at that point, you can tell that, okay, no one knows that they're kind of together. Right. So, and if they're on a boat or a ferry, they're going somewhere to probably, get away from everybody.
Right.
So then it goes into where they're obviously doing some sightseeing, and then they go to the store, and then they start looking for clothes because he needs another shirt because this is all coffeeed up. And so Allison gets kind of a dress to try on, and she goes into the dressing room, and we all predicted this.
Yeah.
He's waiting, and he's panting a little bit. He's like, and she's like, can you help me with this dress? And he's like, absolutely. And he runs in there, and then, they kind of start, getting a little hot and heavy and start kissing, and then you have the attendant say, can I help you? And she kind of spoils spoils it, so to speak. And so then, of course, they stop. And then they go over. And the place they went to is called Block Island, which I wanted to make sure was a real place because he's been experiencing, he even mentioned in this episode too, when they're talking at the bar, that he's having these issues with kind of writing block. And so I didn't know if it was something like a play on words with it, but it is a real island in New Shoreham, Rhode Island. And it's a tourist attraction, and a lot of people go there that are in that area to kind of look. They have museums. There's a lot of stuff to see. Obviously, the lighthouse that they went to. So thought it was interesting. And so when they go over to the bar situation, that's when it kind of really develops, and you start seeing his angst, you know, and kind of his going back and forth, I think, in his head. What do you think he was thinking about at that point?
I think especially, you know, obviously at this point, I think once they go to the bar, they've already been to the Mohegan Bluffs place, yeah?
Correct.
Once they're at the bar?
Yes.
Okay, so I think he's, you know, they've delved into like a few more details of each other's life at that point, and then the conversation with Helen happens on the phone, and that's like the first time that they've been with each other where there's been like that, you know, wife or husband interaction. And so it just kind of, that's the point where it kind of makes everything seem really real. Obviously, like later when they have sex, that's what ultimately makes it really real. But it's like when you see the sneakiness and the apprehension that comes with, oh wait, my wife is calling, I have to say love you, bye right now. You know, obviously he got super stressed out about it. And you know, he definitely shows his guilt and his side anyway. And I think obviously I really think that he loves his wife, and so I think that it's just kind of all hitting him at once in that scene. Like, this is actually happening. I'm really doing this.
I'm really doing
But then
this.
he obviously keeps going with it. So.
Well, a key point that I wrote down is that he says that he's never been unfaithful to his wife.
Right.
So, whereas, and also the question was posed to Allison, and Allison said she obviously has never been unfaithful to her husband. So I think that with this whole affair situation, they're kind of going at it on the same level as far as like what they've done, you know, outside of their relationships. But I think that they're going in with different intentions.
Yeah.
I think that Allison really deals with the fact that she lost her son and her husband. And one thing that we found out, which I thought was very, very interesting, is the fact of the tattoo that her husband has, Cole, of the Archangel, Gabriel, that's on his back, which is their name of their son.
Yeah.
Which I don't want to spoil because we're going to get that in a second. But I think that, you know, and she's constantly reminded of that. And so I feel like she's kind of boxed in this relationship with where he wants to kind of move on and he has a different agenda, I think, in life. And she is kind of just, you know, on a different playing field.
Right.
And this guy comes and showing her attention and all this kind of stuff. And then on his end, he's just this family man with 4 kids and he's just this humdrum life, and he just kind of needs to be spiced up.
Right. And I think that in the bar scene, he asked, you know, do you consider yourself a good person? And she said no. And he was like, oh, why not? And all that stuff. I feel like he was looking for comfort from her saying what you're doing is okay. And I mean, obviously it's not, but I think he wanted that comfort of, it's okay, I'm here for you, I got you, even though you're cheating on your wife, I'm still here for you, I'm on your side. And she didn't say that. She said, you know, I think people are just trying to get by. And he's like, oh, why'd you choose me? And she goes, oh, I like you. Like, not really a good answer. It wasn't, I like the way that I like your personality. It was just, I like you. Just very simple, and I don't really think he got what he was looking for. And then his wife called.
But she also, like, says, her answer is very simple, but it, like, is ultimately what leads them into the affair part, I feel like, because she's like, I like everything about you. You know, I want to know what it's like to be underneath you.
Yeah.
Like, she's putting it
I'm
out
not
there.
very good at this.
You know, like, she's putting it out there. And I don't think he was expecting her to say that. Even though in his version, he always does make her very aggressive and upfront.
Yeah.
I still don't think he was expecting her to say that.
I think he was very
point.
happy with her answer when she said that, I want to be with you. I want to experience what it's like to be underneath you.
Right.
I think he liked hearing that. I don't think he expected it.
Right.
And I think he was hoping for something more positive in her answer of, you know, do you consider yourself a good person? No. I think he was hoping she would say something along the lines of, yes, because fill in the blank. And that didn't happen. But then when she came back with, I want to be with you, I like you, then I think he was happy with that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting too because I feel like as I'm watching this and kind of seeing how they interact with one another, there's a lot of very awkwardness, a lot of cumbersome kind of tactics, like even when they're about to do the deed and kind of some of the things that they're getting into. And I'm like, did you guys read the Affair handbook? Like, it's not very smooth, and I take that as, which for me, it makes it more believable.
Right. I was going to say it's totally believable.
It makes it more believable because if you look at like, other shows that maybe deal with that, or an actual movie that may deal with that, it's all very smooth and seductive. And the guys, if he's the aggressor, he's like very suave, or if it's the woman, the same thing. She's very aggressive or whatever the case is. But in this case, they're both very like, so I don't know. I like the line. Like, I want to be underneath you. Oh, I don't know how to do this. I'm shy.
But at least she's being real about it. She's
Right.
not trying to be someone.
Right.
She's saying, I want to experience what it's like to be underneath you.
Right.
Oh, I'm not good at this.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is so weird.
Yeah.
At least she's being honest.
Well, and two, like even with him, like when they were, at the hotel and they're getting ready to do what they do, and he's like, so I'm not leaving my wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, check. You know that we probably can't do this a long time. Like he's like saying things like you're gonna say this right before you have sex. Like, so it's like, dude, like, okay, that's so weird to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm just like, that's just.
And her responses too. She
Yeah.
was like, I don't expect you to leave your wife.
Right.
And this is only going to be a one-time thing or whatever.
Right.
And she says, yeah, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like it shows how like torn up they are, or how just like kind of messed up they are at the same time. Because I think he, just like you said, it's almost like a checklist. I think he's doing and saying those things to make himself feel better. And I think she's like, this is okay because that's all I want. I just like need some sort of escape. Obviously, she's not saying that, but that's what it kind of comes off as to me. Because we see right before they go to the hotel, when they're still at the bar, and Helen calls and everything, they get into a fight because she's like. He says, if I have sex with you, and she's like, if you have sex with me, and just like you said, the thing, she's like,
come on, dude, we're on Block Island.
Wherever, and so they get mad, and then you see them come back together whenever he goes back to the store to look for something with horses on it for his daughter, and then the sales clerk says, oh, your wife was just here, and he's like, my wife, and then he turns to her and looks at her like, oh, this special moment just happened between us. So
I think he liked hearing that. Your wife is here, and referring to Allison instead of Helen.
Yeah.
And why do you, okay, this is my question, because I was thinking about this when that happened.
Yeah.
Do you think that she actually said that she was with her husband to the clerk earlier? Or why do you think the clerk, thought that?
I think the clerk just made the assumption.
Yeah, because I didn't look. Maybe I should have looked, but I'm sure he has a wedding band on.
And so does she. She has her.
Well, I know she has her ring on because I remember seeing that specifically.
Right, I do too.
So maybe I'm sure she probably just assumed. I wouldn't think that Allison would say that because that would just be weird and creepy.
Right.
But I would think that she just assumed.
But
like,
you know what? It kind of is like even, and I think one of the greatest things is after that they decide after the epiphany. Oh, she said my wife. So then now they're back on because she was going to leave. Right. She was like, she was going to go all the way to Connecticut. Yeah. Like, she was like, I'm going to the next ferry. I can get picked up. Like, she was really livid. And I think it was because he was very conflicted. Yeah. Because when he was at the bar, he was just kind of like, and she even made the term research partner. Oh, yeah. Which kind of takes it away from the romanticism of this particular affair. It's like, no, I'm not like a guinea pig. This is not a project you're working on. Right, exactly. Either you want to do this or not. So she kind of checked him. Yeah. And then she kind of went off. And then that's when, he kind of moseys around and then finds her. And then he's back on, so to speak, and then they go to a hotel to get the room, and then he's like, cash or credit card, and he's like, so like, you got an ATM? Yeah, like, cash, do the cash. But then he's like, you got an ATM? And he's like, I don't know. She's like, oh, I wanted $50. And I just thought that, again, it brings to the realness of this situation.
Yeah,
like it's very awkward.
Money.
Right.
Yeah,
just very awkward, like not smooth. Like they're doing this. They are both conflicted, which I think is very much agreed on both their versions. That they're both conflicted about doing this, but yet they still are. Right.
Something I was just thinking about is, in the part where they were separated because we think she's going back to the ferry and he's moseying around and goes to that museum where the old lady is that he saw Allison with earlier. I was thinking, because how you said at the beginning, like they are going away somewhere where they don't have to worry about people seeing each other. they still have to worry about that because this lady obviously knows Allison and he makes up a bogus, like she knows my wife from yoga.
Right.
I'm like, oh, that's going to come out one day.
Yeah.
Like, hey, don't you know this? No. But when he sees, well, I guess we haven't talked about the bluff part, but whenever he sees that ship that they talked about whenever they were at Mohegan Bluffs earlier in the episode, and I feel like that kind of, you know, reminded him of exactly how he was like feeling for her at the time. And so when he does run back into her, it's like another real moment, another real like, okay, I was mad about this or this happened, but it like brings him back, or almost like a not real moment at the same time, because he, it's like he has very like in touch moments with reality, like, oh crap, I do have a wife and kids at home and my mother-in-law's potentially sick, I'm gonna have to go back, yada yada yada. But then he can like see something that makes him feel a little emotional, and he kind of can just forget about all of that again and go right back into it, and then like kiss her in public in a store whenever he sees her again.
It's interesting. I think also too, and I said this, you know, before when we were watching, his character for me, he's becoming more like a douchebag.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, at first it was kind of like, okay, they're on the equal playing field as far as like they're both, you know, wanting to do this affair, what have you. But I feel like with him, as far as what we've seen, I feel like he's more the one like that is not pushing the affair, because again, this is his version, but she was very adamant about wanting to do this, even with all the, you know, constraints and all the problems that were coming up. But I feel like he is, because I feel like he has more to lose with having the wife, with having children. Like she has a husband as well. She doesn't have children at this time because her son died, which we'll get into. But I feel like the way he moves and the way he talks and how he's lying, like even when he goes to the lady and like he makes up that lie, I understand why he has to do it, because he doesn't want to tie them together. But at the same time, he ends up doing it, which again can easily come back later. But I feel like he's just, I don't know, he's just moving in a way that is just like, dude, like it's just all bad. It's just all bad.
I don't really I don't feel like he's...
Kelly, why are you disagreeing?
Whoa. No. Just because I don't necessarily see him as a douchebag yet.
Okay. Yet.
I think we will get there, but I don't really see it. I think, like you said he has more to lose. He has more to lose because he has a family and he has children. But I think we feel bad for Allison because she's lost her child, which until this episode, we had no idea how the child died. But you can totally tell that she's messed up. She's hurt. She's changed from that. She's broken. And he's not. He's just annoyed with his relationship, and he isn't happy, but she's the one that's broken. And so I think that's why we think that he's a douchebag, because he's not living a horrible life.
Broken. But that I think, to me, that proves my point, just because, again, he's a visitor, and we've said this before, she lives there in the city that they're in. So he can just pick up and leave and take his family after he's done with her, and then she kind of has to stay in this moment and kind of reel from that. And then if there's anything that she gets caught or what have you, it's her city, it's her town that she lives in, where, again, he can leave. Obviously his in-laws are there, but again, it doesn't have the same fixture that she has. Also, the fact that she is broken because she, you know, is not getting along with her husband. She lost her son. She's still dealing with that. It was 2 years ago, but she's still dealing with that, and she keeps getting reminded of it as she talked with her mother-in-law, as she's talked with other people, and it kind of comes up.
Every morning too, with Cole and the tattoo.
Exactly. So that's why I say he's the douchebag. Like, I mean, that's where I'm getting it from. I just don't like his movements, and maybe because I'm the dude and I'm looking on his eyes and be like, man, you messed up, man. It's rubbing right now.
See,
but you know, that could just be, you know, just be me.
Yeah, I am. You know, like I said earlier, I'm definitely seeing more of his douchebaggy side, but I'm
so
honestly,
April, you're with me.
I'm not really.
Kelly.
No, I'm not. I'm kind of team Noah at this point, only because I know. Okay, but I feel like okay, whenever they were at the Bluffs and he was talking to her about his mom and, you know, how he went through this traumatic time whenever he was in high school, which is when, you know, you're really developing and that sort of thing. She had MS. He shares this information with her, and you know, obviously, you know, we always have to point out it is his version, but she is very understanding and that sort of thing, but she doesn't necessarily like share much of herself. I mean, she does, what is she, talks about her grandfather and how, he used to take her there all the time. That was her favorite place and whatever. And I think I think Noah reminds her a lot of her grandfather, because just like, she said in the last episode, he was a storyteller, you're a storyteller. But I think that she almost, it's like, he's up front, or he's not up front like with how he says why he wants to do it, but he's up front in his actions. It's very like, he's not necessarily making like, I'm so depressed, this is happening, yada yada excuses. He is to a certain extent, yes, but I feel like she's almost, it's like, I'm so depressed, so I just want this and this and this, and he's more so like, this is wrong in my life, I'm attracted to you, I want this to happen, but I feel bad about it, but I still want it to happen. So that's why I feel like she's more so making excuses than he is. Not to say that he's not, but I'm there also. So I'm very in between.
April, you're like playing the fence right now. I
am, but I'm literally.
I think that's what these episodes do to you, though.
Yeah.
I think you switch off.
Well,
really
too, and then too, I think it's because it is their version, so to speak. I think in this particular one, I think this was really what happened. Yeah. And that's the reason why they did the continuum as opposed to the separate entities. Right. So I'm going to go on that method, and I'll have another douchebag moment for you since we were kind of onto the hotel, it starts off and he gets upset. And he kicks that dresser.
So now we're on to her.
This is on her part.
Yeah, this is on her part. Yeah. So we did talk about them already having sex, which ended his part or his part. So now it continues with her part. They're still having sex, and then afterwards she's feeling uncomfortable.
Right.
And like she's feeling guilt. I just took it as she was feeling guilty about what was going on.
Yeah,
there was the scene where she was in the mirror, so she's kind of seeing herself, in this
and
situation with
husband.
him.
I thought that was a great scene for her, just as an actress, by the way, because just it's like to have such a raw moment. You could see just by the like small changes in her mouth and in her eyes, that she went from like being very into it to like, oh, this is actually happening. And I'm looking at myself doing this. I just thought it was a great moment.
I love the placement too of the ring. Because the ring was on the wall and she,
that
right
was
there.
all purposeful.
Yeah. It was so
all
good.
Purposeful. No, it was good. The director of this is excellent.
Yep.
So she's doing that. They finish, and then she's feeling uncomfortable. She gets dressed right away. She's laying in the bed. He kind of wants to cuddle. He wants to maybe go number 2, round 2 or what have you. He gets like, let's open some air. She's like, I'm Steffi. All right, cool. He's butt naked. He's like, okay, you ready? Like, and she's just really reeling about it. And so
he's not getting it.
He's not picking it up on it. And so there's that point where afterwards, which is I want to get to the whole dresser situation.
Right.
And this is before they leave the hotel. And I'm like, yo, he kicks the dresser and then in a fit of rage because he's upset, because they actually start, she actually, I don't know what clicks in her mind, but she actually does decide to kind of go for round 2. This is afterwards. This is after they kind of took a break. Because remember, they're on the ledge of what I'm thinking is the back of the room. So kind of like maybe a balcony situation or extended or whatever. They're kind of looking up because she has that scene, which I think is poignant, about the haunted house or the haunted, that the island is haunted.
Right.
And then she's talking about that, which I feel like because, they're doing, and this is my little opinion, but kind of thinking into it, this is where they're being dirty. This is where they're doing their dirt.
Right.
So I don't, again, the island is haunted. It's like, does that go together? I don't know. What do you think?
I think, I don't know. It kind of does, but then I feel like it was just a revealing moment for her as a character. So that, because you see her face and she's like listening to the wind as she's telling him. They say, if you listen to the wind, you can hear a son calling for his mother.
Right.
I think it was just a moment for her just to show like she's clearly still listening for her son's call. Of course she is. And then it gets this is where it semi confuses me because I do definitely think it was a continuation, but then he starts telling her again about his mom dying and how he listens for his mother's voice. And and I thought this was, I think you were talking about the moment that it like clicked for her to like go for round 2 maybe. I kind of think it was this moment when he was like, I still talk to my mom and I still listen for my mother's voice because of when she died. You know, he started doing it shortly thereafter, and I think it made like a connection for her with him. Like, okay, he's gone through something of a similar, you know, genre, I guess you could say, but he also listens for these voices from a depressed and emotional state. And he says he hears his mom talking. He can't hear what she says, but you know, he thinks maybe she's saying let it go. And that's what everyone in her, that's what she wants to do the most, is let it go.
Right. I was ready. I was waiting for it.
Yeah. That's what she wants to do the most, is obviously not let her son go, but let the anger and the depression and the sadness go. And so I think it's a moment for her where it's a connection for the two of them.
The ocean obviously plays a big role in this entire series, whether it's ocean or water in general, because that's how we find out later than this that's how her son died because he drowned. But
much later.
But you know what I thought was interesting is during this whole, when he was explaining about the mother or how he listens for his mother and he can hear her talk, but he can't understand what she's saying. Allison was the one that actually went in for the kiss right after when they started making out. And I feel like pretty much every other time, Noah's been the one to be forceful, and he's been the one to first make the move and be strong. And she was the one that just kind of went in for it. And I wonder if him opening up about his mother and hearing voices, she felt some connection to that and felt like at home that she could make that move and be strong with him.
I don't know that she hasn't like gone in, like been the aggressor at any time. I think there was, and again, these are when we had the two versions.
In his part, she's the aggressor.
She's the aggressor.
In her part, he is normally the aggressor, I feel like.
Right.
And this was her part where she went in for it.
Right, exactly. Which I think just goes, again, what I was saying earlier about this being kind of what really happened.
Right.
So, and that would make sense. So we were talking about how, this happens, and then of course, they, connect again. Oh, okay, round 2. So they're going to go back at it, and then she stops, and because
he sees her scar.
Exactly, and so then all of a sudden he's upset, which I'm getting to the douchebag moment.
It's getting real.
Yes, of the dresser, and he kicks the dresser because he's upset about her stopping and not being able to continue. And then he says, help me with this dresser. And at that point,
I was so confused.
Yeah, I was confused too, because I was like, what is he? Is there a secret passageway?
I knew it. I knew it from the beginning.
You knew at the beginning?
I'm like, of course. If they know that he kicked the dresser, there's going to be damage. He's going to be charged for it. His wife's going to find out. He obviously didn't have enough cash to pay the room. I don't know how my mind it works, but I'm
April,
like, obviously he has to do that.
Have you done this before?
I have never done this before.
Been there, done that, yes.
I promise, but
Come on, April, you can tell us.
I knew. I was like, oh yeah, that's why.
I had no idea.
I
thought it was
so lost.
It was.
Yeah.
I was. I really thought it was like there was something behind the dresser. There was a secret passageway. They were going to go to it. I mean, I was thinking, because I was just like, what is it? Why would he get the
I was like, are they going to do it for something kiki?
Right, exactly. Tie this dresser up on the chandelier. And then I didn't even know that the damage was, and that was part of it too, because I don't know if you saw, but the damage to the dresser.
Right.
I didn't realize the dresser was damaged like that.
So badly,
and so then it started clicking when he starts, okay, let's take this dresser in.
Right.
I'm going to move it in. And I'm like, oh, he's trying to change the dresser. And then he starts, explaining to her, because she was lost like us.
She's
She was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, so douchebag. That's case in point. Like, I feel like.
But he can't get caught.
I understand he can't get caught, but I feel like, and again, I think it's just because they're not on equal playing fields with the fact that she is from there, she lives there, this is her home, and he's visiting.
Right.
And I think that I'm always going to make that argument for that very reason.
Yeah.
Now, maybe future, we'll probably see some things pan out that will change my opinion, but I just really think that he's becoming more and more the person that I just really don't like in this situation.
But see, he didn't understand why she stopped him, and she wouldn't open up about that, and he was like, wait, why, is everything okay, what's wrong? And she's like, no, I just don't want to do this. And so I think he got frustrated with the fact that, I already cheated on my wife, and this woman's not opening up to me, and she's making my life hell, and it's just not a good situation for him. And so I think that's why his rage gets out of control, and he goes, goes straight for the dresser.
Right.
Well, and I think too, he really, that's something he likes, because if you remember when they were talking earlier, he was, can't remember which version it was. I think it might have been his version, but he was saying about, she was mentioning, and she said this before, about like, I'm just, you're not just going to have me, and I'm not just like free spirited person that you can kind of just be with and then whatever, and then just leave me alone. Yeah. And so she said this before, and she said it again, and he was like, you're like the farthest from that. You're very complicated. You're not easy. You're not simple. And so I think he likes the challenge because, again, being that he's the husband with his father, as a father, all these children, I think his wife really doesn't, I don't think she really respects him to the degree. And we've mentioned this before.
Right.
And I think she's also very, like, when it comes to, being in the bedroom, that first episode, I think it was the first scene, she was laughing at him. So which is very, like, terrible. You can't really do nothing with that. Like, what are you going to do? So I think that is what, even though he gets frustrated, that is what's drawing him to her.
And I think he also likes how unpredictable Allison is. Because his life at home is so routine.
Exactly.
And Allison, he has no idea what's going to happen. He has no idea what's going on in her head because she doesn't open up.
Right. This, on that same thing, so I actually wrote it in my notes. So this was in her part where she was talking about this, and it's because she apologizes for the things she said to him in the hotel room. And because, she's like, he says, you can trust me, like, tell me what's going on after he sees the scars. And she says, why would I trust you? You're cheating on your wife with me. And then so she's apologizing to him, and she says that she's like, I know how you see me. You see me as this easygoing, free spirit, but I'm not going to rescue you from anything. So I think she sees exactly what he is going through.
Right.
And she sees like that he's clearly in a situation that is making him act out of how he would normally act. And so she knows, she's like, I'm not going to rescue you from this. I'm not going to be, just some whatever on the side kind of thing. So I think she, even though he hasn't, he's opened up in certain ways, obviously, but I think she can actually like see him for what it's for. And up until later in the episode, I think he hasn't really been able to fully see her. He can tell that, she's damaged and she has been through some stuff, but I think he can't really like see her, but she can see him, if that makes sense.
No, but no, I'm just joking. It does.
You're like, no.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
I will say, kind of to piggyback on that, I want to ask you guys a question, because he does say, there's a point where he says she has darkness written all over her face.
Oh, yeah. I wrote the same thing down.
What do you think he means by that? Do you think that's just what she's dealing with, with her son? What do you think he's getting from that?
That's the point where I think that he actually does fully see her, it kind of admits that he does, or realizes that he does, because it's so clear that she's going through some dark stuff and has been through some majorly dark stuff. Obviously we have seen her cut herself, and we've seen her do other things that show that she's in a dark place, but in her version, every time it's just she rarely smiles. She smiles only when something is like actually really funny or they're doing something crazy. And she's almost constantly in tears or has tears in her eyes.
In her version, though.
Yeah, in her version. Definitely all in her version.
She's fine. She's smiling.
Right. And so I think that, she is definitely more about the connection. As we see later in the episode when he's like, look at me, she hasn't, like, been able to fully enjoy herself, I guess.
Yeah.
Politically correct way to put it, until they actually connect. And so I think that's important, that in her version, she is, remembering or telling the detective about ways that they connected, maybe because she's trying to, make him like be like, oh, this is why I did this, make him understand. But anyway, that's going on into a different topic. But I think she says a thing like that because it's the connection that matters to her, and that's another moment of connection. She's like, oh, he sees me. He sees that I'm not just I'm not covering something up. He sees that I'm actually depressed and that I'm really going through something.
Yeah.
I think also too, he can express those type of things. He's a writer,
Right.
So, and I was thinking about that especially when he made that statement, because that's very much a prose type of, I see darkness written all. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't say that to
It just so reminded me of Dexter. Yeah. Because I'm such a Dexter freak. Yeah. I'm like, oh, little shout out right there.
Right. So I'm just like, okay, is this game like, because again, I'm really not on his team right now.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, what is he doing? And that to me was just a moment, not to say he's not being genuine when he says it, but it's just the way he's saying it. I feel like he's trying to pull, anytime she pulls away, he tries whatever he can move to kind of pull her back in.
Okay,
So if it's
that's a
like
good point.
exposing himself, then okay, cool. That worked. Or, oh, let me be gentle at this point. Or
Right.
let me be understand. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever he feels like, when she's pulling away, he does something, to get her kind of back on his good graces.
That takes so much energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an affair. Like this is a lot. They had to go to a whole.
tired.
They had to go to an island to do this. Like they couldn't just go down the street. You know what I mean? Like this is all a lot of work.
Oh my goodness.
I
funny.
really like the fact that it finally got to the point where we find out about what happened to our son. They were teasing us like I feel like the whole time, all these last episodes that they've had, and we get bits and pieces of information, and finally found out that the son drowned.
Yes.
Didn't really go into more detail than that, but at least we know how he died because we never knew that.
Right.
We kind of knew, and Kelly, you were mentioning about he was 4, and I think that was from the tombstone.
Yeah, I think it was like 2008 to 2012
Right.
or something like that.
I think that's what I saw too. So we know that he's 4 years old. We know that he drowned. His name is Gabriel,
Right.
which is hence when she mentioned about her husband, Cole, having the tattoo, which very bothers her. And when she said that, I thought back about I think it was the first episode when she kind of looks over and sees his tattoo and then just immediately walks outside and then she's just having a moment. And I'm like, and at first, not knowing
We have no idea
exactly
what that
why
means.
that, but now this makes total sense because like she said, she has to see that every single day. And it always, every time she sees that, it takes her back to that dark place.
See, I think this was a great place for them to go. This what was it called? The
Block Island?
Block Island. I
Yes.
think it was a great place for them to go because every place that she lives in or works in, everything just reminds her of the son and the family. And I mean, even on the train or ferry ride home, she got a text from Cole. And if you read the text message, it was her saying hi, and then a couple minutes later, hello, no response, and then he responds with, oh, look at this picture of this horse, can't wait for you to meet this beaut. And there's no connection, marital connection, it's just blah, and so she's over it, and you can tell that. And so I think the fact that they went to this island and she was able to express that, I think that was very unique, and I didn't expect it for this episode for it to happen, but I think it's because they're on the island and they had their own time, and she was away from everything that reminds her of the son and the family and the death and drowning. And
But then we see her open up about it, so that was huge, to him, because she obviously ends up telling him that, I cut myself occasionally,
Right, she did mention that.
To get away from the pain because it's the only thing that helps. And she tells him about her son, and we actually see a little bit of happiness in her for a second while she's talking about him.
that was really great. I loved
so too.
seeing that because that was a genuine smile.
And he reacted just as he should, in a normal way. Like, I'm so sorry. But I honestly, it's kind of weird to me that he, we obviously can realize that he likes that, the danger, or he likes, kind of like rescuing someone almost, I feel like. But, I mean, someone like tells you, like, I cut myself, and he's like, let's do it. I mean, not immediately, but I'm like, because she even says, she's like, I understand if you never want to see me again. But that kind of just tells me that he really is feeling some sort of connection with her.
They are very much connected. I will say that despite everything else, how I feel about him, they both have a connection to one another.
Right.
Coming from different places, but they definitely do have that connection. There was even the scene where he's like, let's run away together. What do you think about that? Like, kind of just thinking, obviously, it's nothing that can't happen. But, like, I think just kind of playing pretend, like, what if we could do this? This would be great, and we could get away from it all. Which, in her, it would definitely be amazing because of where she's at, like you said. Where she lives reminds her every day. Her husband reminds her every day. Her mother-in-law won't let it go because she's talking to her about, like, oh yeah, you have another child, I'll help you this time. Which I thought was horrible for her to say that, but that's what she's dealing with on a consistent basis. So it's just interesting that how he's kind of playing into that. And I think I just want to see where they can completely, like, commit to one another. I don't think that'll ever happen.
Right.
I think this was the closest that we got, but the whole back and forth thing just keeps on, and it's like, okay, then there's drama, and then it's like, okay, they're smiling, and then there's bliss, and then there's and then there's coming back, and so it's like this tug of war the whole time, and I feel like it's like when you're in 5th grade and you like somebody, and then you like them, so you hit them,
right?
Because you like them.
Yeah.
But then when you're not like them, then it's like just playing games almost. But it's not. It's just because of where they are. They have to act this way.
And it's because they realize they have these moments where it's like, oh, this is actually happening. This is what my real life is like. But then they go back and they think like, oh, this is happening. So whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of crazy.
It
but
is
it's
crazy.
Amazing.
So towards the end, we see that they get back. She's fumbling with her bike. He kind of goes and talks to her, tries to comfort her, ends up taking her back home, and then there's a point where he says, "I'm a grown man. I know what I want." And this is in response to her again, kind of backpedaling. She's having that backpedaling moment again, and then he says, "I know what I want," which wasn't really an answer to what she was asking.
What do you see in me?
Right. So it kind of just evaded a little bit, and he just kind of just took it to where like, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Whatever the situation is, this is what I want to do.
Do you think she was happy with that answer?
They went and had sex afterwards. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that,
And how do you ultimately answer that? Like, what do you see in me now after I just told you that I cut myself and that I had a son who died and yada yada yada. But I thought it was kind of huge that he said, "What do you think I see?" And she said, "Death."
Right.
Because she almost is sometimes
feels
seemingly
that.
on the on the verge of death. You know what I mean? So it's kind of, I don't know. And I think the fact that he didn't go with that, and he obviously showed her that's not what I think whatsoever. That's going to be really good for her in the future, as well, good for her, for him, and their relationship anyway.
Right. Well, we'll see
call it that.
how that goes. But like I said before, at the end of that, they end up, we see them having sex again.
Right.
And then there's that moment where he says, I want you to look at me. And I want you to look at me. And I think that that's just telling to kind of get her to connect to him.
Right.
Because of everything that he knows, what she's going through.
Right.
And to kind of just don't worry about that. Let's be in this moment. So very interesting.
It was very passionate too.
Yes.
Unlike how rough it was earlier.
It was hot.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
On that note.
We're all like,
On that note. So on that note, let's go ahead and get into predictions. Let's do that.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Now, before we do that, I know, April, that you said you had some comments that you wanted to read from YouTube.
Okay, so thanks y'all for commenting and for watching. We definitely appreciate it. Let me just pull a few of them up really quick. So this is from, well, I thought I had it pulled up still, from last week's episode. You know what? Give me a second. Let me find
Okay. Well,
Y'all
while
go
she's
ahead.
doing that.
Oh, no, I got it.
Okay.
No, wait, I don't got it.
Okay. Kelly, why don't you, mention what you think predicting going forward into the next episode?
Getting back to what we were talking about earlier about the detective and how he said, or in Noah's version, he said, my divorced wife has custody of the children. And then in her version, it was, oh, my wife of 25 years. I'm wondering what that means. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm still trying to figure out who is murdered and how.
Right.
And I think we didn't really get any context clues this episode by any means. But I think with the upcoming episodes throughout the season, I think I'm thinking it's somebody from is it the Lockharts? Is that their last name,
Yes,
the Lockharts? I'm thinking it could be the brother. I don't think it's Cole. I think Cole is going to start finding out. I think both Cole and Helen will start finding out about this.
About the affair.
I don't know if they're going to stay married, either side of it. It's going to turn out horrible regardless.
Obviously.
So I just don't. I'm at a loss for words.
Were you able to pull it up, April?
Yes. So one of them, sorry, it's just like reloading because I clicked out of it. One of the one that stuck out to me, is from Osef Kincaid, and he just points out, he says, it's not a memory, it's a deposition. It's not a coincidence. You remember how last episode I was talking about how the man said he had an honest face, and how I'm like, oh, I think he has an honest face too. He says it's not a coincidence that someone pops up in his memory to say he has an honest face. He's trying to convey to the cop that he's trustworthy, that he's a good man, that there's no reason to doubt his story, which is really important for us to remember this whole time, because I do kind of, obviously, we know that it is a deposition and that they're all ultimately just telling a story to the detective.
Right.
But that's important to remember in the fact that they are saying certain things or bringing up certain memories to make themselves look a
the
certain way
best.
to
Right.
the detective.
Right.
True.
And so he purposefully brought up that this editor said that he had an honest face and that she purposefully calls him a storyteller and that sort of thing. So I thought that was good, just something that we can always need to remember, that they're ultimately just trying to make themselves look a certain way because of some murder that we don't know about yet.
And even in his story too, remember what's his name? Henry called and said that he read the first chapter and he
Right.
likes it and he
Right.
wants to keep going with it. So
Right.
another positive thing in Noah's life.
Right.
Yeah.
To the detective.
Interesting. Well, that is our show for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank you for joining us. As always, we will be back next week with another after show for this. April, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at April Whisenhant.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Kellie Knez.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at The Poet Saint. Make sure you come back next week, and we'll see you then.
See you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.